Welcome back, everybody. Today we are discussing Verasity VRA, a super high potential low cap altcoin. We have some critical updates to their tokenomics and roadmap, so we're going to cover that, and then we're going to dive into some realistic price predictions and chart analysis. So let's jump right in. So one of the first things I want to note here is that you're going to see on the circulating supply of VRA that we have about 10.3 billion tokens. Now I want you to keep that number in mind, and then also keep this 110 billion number in mind, and notice that it's saying that this is 10% of the supply. Now this is not totally accurate, and we're going to kind of shed some light on that and dive a little bit deeper. So looking at a more kind of concrete breakdown of the tokenomics, this is where the 100 billion is coming from. And now it's really critical to understand that the POV marker token, which accounts for 90 billion of that 110 billion, that's going to only carry data. So it's only going to be used for VeraViews customers who are looking to use the ad fraud detector technology that Verasity is putting forth. Now, 10 billion of those tokens are also going to go to a war chest that are supposed to be used for acquisitions or key hires amongst VRA for the funding for that. Now, the rest of this 10 billion is going to be used in the open market. There's going to be a team token aspect. I believe the first time that that's going to vest is 25% in February of 2023. So we still have another 9 months to go or so until this gets unlocked. That's that 2.2 billion token supply right there. And then obviously we have staking wallet rewards, and then what's sitting on the market and open exchanges, and those locked staking Vera wallet tokens as well. Now, I know that this kind of looks a little bit confusing, so I wanted to show a visual that kind of breaks it down a little more simply. So the total supply is 110 billion, but that 110 billion won't all be circulating in the supply. So that's a very key distinction that you need to keep in mind. Now, looking at our three breakdowns here, what we're seeing is 10 billion to investor tokens. So open markets, these are kind of the tokens that we buy and sell, that folks are trading on KuCoin and whatnot. And then you're going to have, and this is the 10 billion that we're seeing circulating right now, by the way. So that's why we're seeing that 10.3 on that CoinMarketCap page. That's that 10 billion token right there. Now the other 10 billion, this is the war chest. That's what I pointed out before, where it's for strategic acquisitions and hires that they might use. And this is key, right? So investment tokens, this war chest of 10 billion, can re-enter the open market if and when companies or people receiving these tokens sell them. So the theoretical supply of open market tokens will be 20 billion at some point. It's really not quite laid out in stone when that could come along. It's really going to be up to the discretion of Verasity. But right now, when you're investing, treat it as there's going to be 20 billion circulating supply at some point. Now, this 90 billion is only going to be for institutional customers, and they're going to be proof of view marker tokens that will not enter the circulating supply. So you can basically negate this as an investor and kind of think of that more so as the utility token when it comes to institutional investors, using proof of view. Now, what's also key is that VRA is going to be deflationary, as Verasity will use VeraView profits to regularly buy back and burn VRA. Because, Mark, who's the founder, CEO of Verasity, has definitely addressed some key concerns amongst investors. It definitely concerned me to see, these tokenomics come out and say, wow, we have a lot of supply. And I know that they're kind of promising they will buy back and burn once VeraView profits come in. Now, that's going to be a little bit longer term, but at the same time, good to see that they have that on the map. And like we said, this is going to be more for strategic acquisitions in terms of the investment tokens. So eventually those could be unlocked when Verasity sees fit. But just want to set that record straight. I think a lot of people are thinking, whoa, 110 billion tokens will come into circulating supply, based on their previous 10 billion promise. But it's more so going to be, if we're looking out 5 years, even further than that, most likely 20 billion around there will be the ultimate circulating supply. So definitely wanted to point that out. Now, there's been somewhat of a key development on the Q2 roadmap. The director of business development for Verasity, Dan Hodgson, I think I'm pronouncing that right. He did a Q&A and talked about where they are on their roadmap. They've accomplished a lot, right? But I think the main thing, and when I used to do videos on Verasity back in the day, this is one area of the roadmap I always stressed, right? Because this is where this project's going to make or break. If proof of view does not do well with Brightcove customers, if customers do not enjoy the tool, if it's not helpful, Verasity is basically going to be dead on arrival. So this is really the most important aspect. Now, I think a lot of people took this point in Q2 as saying, okay, it's live to all Brightcove customers, but the issue is it's actually only live with select Brightcove customers. So the site and login portal deployed for those, and it's only a select, it's only a handful, and this is out of a few hundred to 1,000 potential publishers and customers in Brightcove. So I think there's been a lot of uncertainty around that and a lot of confusion because I think a lot of us as Verasity investors were thinking that hey, all of Brightcove is going to have access by this quarter, and that really would push up the timeline, right? But what we're seeing is that it's only to select Brightcove customers. And actually, according to this most recent Q&A with Dan, we're more so going to see that go wider in Q4. So we're waiting 2 additional quarters from what was mostly expected for a lot of Verasity investors. So I know that kind of was a little bit of a punch in the gut for some folks, and maybe about a couple weeks back caused that little sell-off. But it looks like Q4 will be live with several channels and publishers, meaning more so outside of that initial beta of Brightcove customers that got allowed in early. So that's definitely something that was a little bit confusing on the roadmap. A lot of people were expecting that to be coming out in this kind of Q2 moniker that they had originally. So definitely a little bit of a disappointment. Very, very clear that this needs to be a long-term hold. I still very, very much believe so. Strongly in their business model and in what they want to do, but at the same time we have to be realistic with our expectations of timeline. They will not be pulling in any serious revenue anytime soon, most likely not into next year, right? So we have to have that expectation set as an investor and kind of put those emotions aside when we get kind of disgruntled by things like this. But I will say that it is great that they are going very, very specific with gathering leads, with presenting themselves as VeraViews. So there's going to be no confusion amongst customers. They're setting up this separate website to show, hey, this is VeraViews Analytics. This is how you verify impressions, how you monetize things without fraud. And it's good that they're separating this from Verasity because this will make it a lot easier to generate leads, institutional leads for those customers, even outside of Brightcove. And that's how they're going to be generating revenue into the future. So it's great to see that. And I think that that's on the positive side. It was just that the timeline has just been pushed out a little bit from what a lot of people expected. And I wanted to address some of that confusion. Now, before we get into the charts, one last thing. I think it's really important to give props to VRA on their in-person presence. So they've really stepped their game up and they've gone to quite a few different events, one being Cannes Lions. And there were 58 participants in their event, and some were ready to test VeraView deployments with potential partners, and new marketing collateral has come out for B2B products, and there's already demand following up that event. So they're going to these events, talking with very, very high potential customers, and actually generating a lot of interest in these events. I think a lot of people see just on its face how incredible this ad tech could be. It's just whether or not they pull it off, right? And that's kind of why, that adjustment to the roadmap has been, such a critical thing to understand and why we need to set that expectation. But going into the charts here for just a little bit, I want to kind of focus on setting expectations. So we have the daily candle chart here for VRA. And now I just want to talk a little bit about what we've done recently and where the ranges might be here into the future. So if you can see here really clearly, we had this somewhat of a bounce off of 004, and we came up here almost to 005. But right now we're kind of struggling and experiencing some resistance right now at that point. Now, I will say that we have a lot coming down the pipeline in terms of macroeconomic news. We have a CPI print coming up from the Fed, as well as a meeting where they might hike interest rates again. They will. It's just depending on how much they will. And then we also have Russia, Ukraine, right? So we have to remember all coins are ultimately at the mercy of Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin drops again, it's very, very likely we'll see Verasity test this top of this channel at 0.004, but then likely fall to 0.0035 because this was, if we go back here, This was the previous resistance we were experiencing before that kind of moonshot that we experienced early in 2021. So if we are going to head back to the downside, and I think short term we will be heading back to the downside, guys. I don't want to sugarcoat it. Long term, I love this project. It's a big altcoin bag of mine, but I think we need to be realistic here in the short term. I think we see some downward movement, especially if Bitcoin and macroeconomic news continue to slide. So down to the downside, we're looking at 0035. And then if things do get worse, if we do not bounce, I'm assuming we'll maybe play in this channel a little bit, but if we end up falling through, it really would get kind of precarious. We have kind of this whole area to play in terms of downside, because we really don't have much support until this resistance previous to that pump. So that would put us all the way back down at 0009, and that would get kind of ugly. So again, if we do fall, further from where we're at now, probably causal from Bitcoin, I would expect 003, and then if it gets worse than that, let's say Bitcoin goes down to 11, 12K, we could be looking at some range bound action from VRA between 003 and all the way down even to 0007 and playing in this purple rectangle. So I want to set that expectation. I do think, to the upside, we have some potential, just very, very limited, especially with what's going on right now. So if we look to the upside, I think where the major resistance we're going to experience is right here at 006. That was, a tight channel resistance back here. And, once we fell through that, we really fell down. So I think that even if we do get a little bit of a pump, let's say Bitcoin goes to 25, 28K, somewhere in there before we come back down, I think that this could be the short-term top for Verasity. So be careful if we do see this pump, and you're seeing Verasity go, 25, 30%, and you think that, it's time to circle around. I would halt your horses. I think it's a big, that's a big mistake I made early in my crypto investing career was, jumping on altcoins before they really turned around and getting in on them too early. So I think to sum up, short term, I think we do have some trouble ahead of us. We could have a little bit more room to grow, maybe 20, 25%. But after that, I think that we will have a return to the downside. And then long term, we're looking back to get to 2 cents before we make a full reversal back to the upside. So that's all I have for you guys today. Hopefully that was a helpful update. Wanted to clear some of that up. Let me know what you want. Let me know what else you want me to cover, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.